guys, this is Nettie from Mindful Patchwork, and this video is about the completion of project 33 in the quilt making challenge that I've set myself for 2026. There are 3 other projects that have been completed prior to this that you'll see on my YouTube channel, which is at Mindful Patchwork 2025. I decided to set myself a challenge for 2026 to complete 36 quilt kits, and this is the 4th one that I've completed so far. I'm counting down from 36. This is now project 33 that's completed. So I just want to talk to you about the design and the pattern and what I thought about the make, basically. It's not the typical sort of quilt pattern that I would go for. It is Tula Pink fabrics, so I had to obviously buy the kit, and I think that was the rationale behind it. It's from the Curiouser and Curiouser range, Free Spirit by Tula Pink. Not my favourite range, and I probably wouldn't buy it again, though I have to say I'm slightly in love with these cups, teacups. So let's start off with the pattern first of all. So the kit came, and it finishes at size 132 by 105 centimetres, so it's not a massive quilt, and I've not added anything extra apart from, you'll see this light sashing here, and I'll explain why I've had that in a minute. That's the only, it's about 2 inches bigger than it needs to be, and that's because I made a slight design change. So this is the original quilt, and you can see, if I close in here, you've got the blocks, but then they've actually used a floral fabric as the background. Now I wasn't getting the vibe off that, to be honest, so what I did, because there was lots of it, in addition to the cup fabric being used for the outer border, I also decided to cut it directionally. So all of the vertical sashing strips have been cut vertically, and the horizontal strips have been cut horizontally, so I don't have any sideways cups basically. And then what I did is I used the floral, so this is what should have been here, but I used it for the cornerstones just to break that up. And I just feel that that's given me a little bit more of a Tula quilt vibe. I wasn't getting it with this, and I quite like the definition that having the teacups is actually given. Now what I will be doing is I will be inserting some photographs into this video as I go, just to explain a few of the processes, etc. that I went through. So you will see little pop-ups every now and then. Just to go over the pattern, it's classed as an intermediate. Now I think the only reason why is because there is a lot of chain piecing and it involves a lot of half square triangles. And I would say that's probably a good call, because this fabric here, this stripe fabric, wasn't printed. That's probably the fabric I dislike most in this pattern. For some reason, it seemed a bit thinner than all the other fabrics. It wasn't printed very straight at all. So trying to get the fabric cut from the meterage with these stripes straight and not on a wonk was quite tough, and there was a lot of fabric that I had to cut off to do that, so it was a bit of a challenge. But if we go back to the pattern, you can see here they were the original fabric, so there was 8 fabrics in total, and you can see the patterns, very basic. Now the pattern doesn't tell you how to make half square triangles, and it doesn't tell you how to make the rectangle patches either, so unless you know how to do that, so this is why it really needs to be an intermediate. So the pattern's straightforward. There's just like 12 blocks. It's not a big quilt, and that's it really. So that's the outer box, and that's the pattern. And then if I just give you a close-up, you can see here, each block has a centre block. These are 3.5 inches. And then the patches that needed to be made before you could put this together were these rectangle patches. So they all had to be done. So there's 4 of those per block. And then there is the half square triangle box. So all of these need to be made up. So there was an awful lot of chain piecing involved in this quilt before I could even make any of these blocks up. And then for the construction, I sewed the middle together and then as a strip, and then I sewed the top one and then the bottom one, and then constructed it all as a complete block. Okay, and then you end up, I sort of went with the layout. So you can see from the top, we've got a gradient down of greens, and then we go to these blues here. So that was the best layout. I will put a picture of when I was messing around with the layout. I took a photograph of that. Now, because I'd changed up the sashing, and obviously I've got teacups here and then teacups in the outer border, if I had not have made a slight design change, we would have had these sashing strips here running straight into teacups, and I think it would have looked very unusual. So I had some of this fabric left. Now this fabric is the one that I fussy cut. So you can see here we've got Alice, and I think it's a pelican. I forget what that bird's called. It's got a name, hasn't it? And then we've got the fans. So I did fussy cut. It's mainly fans and Alice in the centre. And then, so what I did, I had some of that fabric left. So I cut a 1-inch strip and I sewed it all around, and basically it just gives this slight definition. I'll include a close-up photograph. It gives this slight definition, but you still get this feeling of all of the teacups in the background, you know, floating almost behind the 9 blocks. So all in all, I'm really pleased with it. I was trying to get these matched up, but it was impossible, to be honest. Trying to get my I didn't want to waste too much fabric, obviously, you know, it's expensive fabric, Tula. So in the end I gave up. So we have, but that's probably the worst. It's not too bad at this end. I was able to join, I just had to join a little bit for each, because I'd actually added this on and increased the length of the quilt. It meant that I had to patch up here, which when it's quilted you won't notice that, but I did have to insert a small piece here, so that's how much I extended it by. But that's my own, I had to figure that out myself because that was my own design change. So all in all, I'm pleased with it. It's not a pattern that I would probably make again, or if I did, I wouldn't use such patterned fabrics, because I think you're losing the definition, I think. I'm not 100% happy with the fabrics, and I wouldn't personally, if I was to make this block again, I probably wouldn't use such heavily patterned fabric, but it's what it came in the kit. Purchased the kit a while ago from Sewing, very reasonably priced. I'm going to back this with, I've got some extra large dogtooth pink and dark cerise woven fabric for the back, so it's going to be more like a coverlet than a quilt. So, but I'm going to be worrying about the quilting of all these projects in 2027. I just want to make them today. So I hope you enjoyed this little close-up and this little chat about this project. And now let's move on to project 32. I wonder what type of quilt kit it will be. If you'd like to find out more, please follow along by subscribing to my YouTube channel at Mindful Patchwork 2025. You can also join me on Instagram at the same address. Follow me on Facebook at Patchwork Mindfulness. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to make sure that you get updates when new videos are uploaded. And I'll see you soon with Project 32.